Hi, my name is Nicolina Circella and my topic is autism spectrum disorders. What is autism? Autism or autism spectrum disorders refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech and nonverbal communication, as well as by unique strengths and differences. We now know that there is not one type of autism, but there are many types, and most of these types are caused by a combination of genetic and environmental factors. There are many different disorders that fall under the spectrum. One of the most common used to be Asperger's syndrome, but it has since been removed and we do not diagnose children with that anymore. Another is Rett syndrome, childhood disintegrative syndrome, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, and of course the most common, autism. Children diagnosed with these disorders are special and unique, and it takes a little bit of adjustment for them to live a normal life and adjust, but with the right plan of action, they can get along in their daily routine just as easy as any other child. The difference in severity varies for every child and every case diagnosed. The educational needs and treatments may also differ for the child diagnosed, because one child may perform very well in school and one child may perform subpar, and sometimes they may need to be pulled out of class for that extra assistance. Also, like, therapy may need to happen maybe once or twice a week, but then another child may need it every day. Many children across the world suffer from autism, but it is definitely manageable, and it's definitely easy to live with. What causes autism? Autism is hard to diagnose because it is so complex. There are so many things that show themselves with the condition that it's really hard to just pinpoint. Researchers haven't been able to pinpoint the idea that there's only one specific gene that causes the disorder, but they have decided that it's the interaction of many genes amongst each other. Genetics have many different combinations that could be formed, so basically it could be missing genes or just extra genes may result even in the diagnosis. There was one study that was done. 264 families were involved, and they had to have at least one autistic child, multiple autistic children, or children without any diagnosis. DNA is collected from both the parents and the children of the families, and then the DNA is compared. They look for differences in the DNA amongst the autistic children and then their parents. Basically what they found was that the autistic children had the biggest changes in the DNA. Most of the differences resulted in missing chunks of the DNA. So basically this test showed that one of the many causes of autism would be the missing genes or the missing DNA. Each and every case and each and every child is different, so the symptoms would obviously be different. That's why autism is so unique, because there are so many different things. It could be very mild and very difficult to diagnose because you don't pick up on the different behaviors that the child is exhibiting, and or it could be really easy to diagnose because you see a child who is behaving in an abnormal way, so then you take them to the doctor and they realize maybe it's time for them to be diagnosed. There is no biological test for autism, so basically it still remains a behavioral defined disorder, so you just kind of have to watch how the child behaves and interacts in the world to determine if they are under the spectrum. Things to look for in a child with autism: they typically lack communication skills, so whether that be they struggle holding or carrying on a conversation, or maybe they even have trouble communicating with their parents. Sometimes it's hard for them and they don't know how to tell their parents that they're hungry, or they don't know how to tell their parents that they've used the restroom. Sometimes they use signs or noises that they associate, so you really have to watch for that. They also have difficulty forming relationships. You notice this mostly in classrooms because there's a student who sits in the corner and he is happy playing on his own and he does not want to be involved with the other kids. And he may not view it as a problem, but you notice that he's kind of really secluding himself. And then also, if you notice that a child is playing with toys or objects in unusual ways that you typically wouldn't imagine the toy being used for. Also, if their routine is adjusted in any way, they may have a really hard time adjusting to the new way. They're really stuck in a routine, and when they are thrown off their schedule, sometimes they just are not able to jump back into the swing of things. Lastly, they may have repetitive body movements or behaviors. Not all children who are diagnosed with autism have the same symptoms that I just listed, because they may have one or two, they could have all of them, or they could have none. Like I said before, autism is so unique and it's very hard to diagnose sometimes, so you really just have to watch for the behaviors of the child. Ways to help a child who's diagnosed with autism: you have to make sure when they are diagnosed that you take the correct approach, whether that be intervention and therapy, just so that way they are getting back on the right track and they're not falling behind. Also, once again, the severity of the diagnosis determines how quickly you jump in and how often you start the therapy and intervention. And then, like sometimes an altered learning plan at school will be sufficient for one child, but then another may need to be in a seclusion classroom where they're really getting an altered curriculum and they have someone working with them one-on-one. Autism is a condition that requires an immense amount of patience and engagement with the child. They have to realize that they are understood and they're not alone. So if they know that someone else is on their side, it's easier for them to progress. And you have to take time to understand that child, or no progress really will ever be made. There is no cure for autism, but it is definitely manageable, and it is definitely able to be, I don't want to say corrected, but it's able to be handled in a way that allows the child to live a normal life, and they may just have to go about their day a bit differently. When a child is diagnosed with autism, sometimes the dynamics of the family change. It's a family matter. It doesn't just affect the child at hand. You will need adjustment, it will be necessary, but fulfilling a normal family setting, it's very possible. Sometimes a parent may need to devote extra attention to the child who was diagnosed, because they will need extra attention and they will behave and perform their day a bit differently than, say, an older sibling. So sometimes the older siblings will understand and they might feel left out, but as parents and even the doctors could step in, if the siblings and the whole family understands the situation, it will only better the outcome of the diagnosis for the child, just so that way everyone's on the same page and no one feels that they are put aside and forgotten about. It's about embracing the differences. It's about positive engagement without pointing out their bad behaviors, and it's about listening to what the child enjoys and using that to engage him or her in ways that will build on communicational, behavioral, and social skills. Living with the diagnosis is possible. It's just, like I said before, the treatment and the intervention just has to be directed towards them to allow them to push forward. And basically, autism is a very common disorder and very common diagnosis, and the world is becoming more educated. I think that we could educate the world a little bit more. I think some of us are still in the dark, but it is treatable. As a family, it will be hard, but there is no reason that the family dynamic cannot push on and the child with the diagnosis can thrive and live his or her life just as they were going to before.